Hi there, welcome back to the formulaic approach. Now in this video, I quickly want to cover something in English language. You of course know that I've not been teaching English on this channel, but since I'm saying that there are some basic things that some of you need for WAEC and that you don't already have, okay, some basic knowledge that you need. So for example, you have these grammatical names and functions which you cannot escape in your WAEC, and many students still have problem with answering questions on grammatical name and function. So that is the essence of this video. I want to give you a very simple approach to understanding grammatical name and function, such that there is no question on this that you cannot answer. Exactly. And with me, I have this new concept English to help teach you to use as examples. Okay, when I have taught you how to do it, then we'll use comprehension passages from here. We'll answer just the grammatical names and function questions there. Alright, now let's go on to the video already. So now, in order to understand grammatical name and function, we have to first know what is called the English structure. Okay, so just stick with me. Now the English structure basically is about how the levels of organization of the English structure. So the first level is the letter of the alphabet. So we have the letters of the alphabet, and that's the simplest or smallest level of the English structure. So the letters of the alphabet begin from A to Z. Exactly. These are the letters of the English alphabet. Then if you now combine letters of the alphabet together in some ways, you may form things that make sense, and you may form some that don't make sense. Altogether, those simple structures that you form are called morphemes. So a morpheme may make sense or may not make sense. So for example, look at this morpheme. I could combine A and T together. Then I'll make what? I combine A and T. It gives me art. If I combine A and N, it's going to give me an. If I combine A and L, it's going to give me R. So far, this one makes sense, this makes sense, but this does not make sense, right? But it's still a morpheme, okay? It's a morpheme. Usually, morphemes work as prefixes or suffixes. A prefix is just a morpheme that begins a word, and the suffix is a morpheme that you can attach to the end of a word. So for example, this AL is primarily a suffix. You attach it, is a morpheme that you attach to the end of a word. So for example, if I call this, if this is my word, norm, if I add AL, for example, it becomes normal. Exactly. So you see, normal is still one word, but it is a combination of a word and a morpheme. So what that tells you is that when you combine morphemes, in fact, you are able to get a word, okay? A word. So morphemes make up words, okay? So an example again is the word like, for example. This is a word, all right? I can make other words out of this. For example, if I add the morpheme UN. So UN is a good prefix. It means not. So unlike means not like. Okay? Now what if I add the suffix ly? It becomes unlikely. Okay, so this is a word, one word, unlikely. But it was made from this first one, which is the base word, then added to it ly morpheme, the prefix ly, and the prefix un and the suffix ly. Do you understand now? So that is a word. Just stick with me, we are going somewhere. Now, when you now combine words together without a finite verb, you make a phrase. Then when you combine phrases with a finite verb, you make a clause. So and there are two types of clause. We have the main clause and the subordinate clause. The main clause is a simple sentence. The entire structure makes sense and it can stand on its own. But a subordinate clause is one that cannot stand on its own, even though there is a verb in it. But it makes sense, okay? But it cannot really stand on its own as a statement. But of course, the clause comes combined together. For example, I can combine a main and a subordinate, and I'll make a sentence. Okay? So a sentence is always complete. It's a complete structure. Okay? So the smallest English fragment that makes sense is a word. And the smallest English structure that is complete is a sentence. Okay? So a sentence is complete. When you combine sentences together, you make a paragraph. I was explaining to some students that paragraph is not, I'll tell you what paragraph is and I'll tell you what indent is. That space that you leave before you start a note, okay, is not paragraph, is not leave paragraph, it is indent. If I ask you to indent, so indent means to leave a small space when you want to begin a new paragraph. I'll show you what a paragraph is in that textbook. Then when you write many paragraphs, you make a passage. All right. So this is the longest English structure. A passage, and the smallest is, or the simplest is, the letters of the alphabet. All right. This said, we are going to be majoring on this phrase and clause. In grammatical names and functions, what you are usually asked to find out is usually a phrase or a clause. So keep in mind, a phrase is an English structure that doesn't have a finite verb. That structure will not contain a verb, but it will be more than one word. Once it's more than one word and it has no verb, it is a phrase. If it's more than one word and it has a verb, it's a clause. Make sense? Alright? So, but we are going to be considering three types of the same thing. Three forms, rather, of the same thing. The first form is the nominal form or the noun form. The second form is the adjectival form. Okay, adjectival form. And the third form is the adverbial form. The adverbial form or the adjunct is also called adjunct. Alright, of the three. Okay, so these three have these three types or three divisions. Okay, so a clause can exist as a noun clause or a noun phrase. An adjective can exist as a noun, adjectival phrase or adjectival clause, and an adverbial can exist as adverbial clause or adverbial phrase. I'm going to be looking at these three. All right. So quickly, let me show you what they are. Now, keep in mind though that if you were taught in class that the types of phrases are 5 types. In systemic English, we actually don't use the 5 any longer. We actually use the 3 that I just mentioned: the noun phrase, the adjectival phrase, and the adverbial phrase. Now listen, the other 2 that might be added are prepositional phrase. I just quickly want to demystify something for you, okay? And verb phrase. Now, the reason why we abolish these 2 in systemic English is that we don't necessarily count them as types of phrases again, because a prepositional phrase is a verb and a preposition. For example, get out, come in, get, a verb, out, a preposition, come in, come, a verb, in, a preposition. So these are prepositional phrases and they contain verbs. Okay, so we count them as forms of verbs, not necessarily types of phrases. How about this one? Verb phrase. Now another name for prepositional phrase is verb. Another name for prepositional phrase is phrasal verb. Phrasal verb. Okay. So phrasal verb is another name for prepositional phrase. But verb phrase is basically when we have a cluster of verbs. So we have, for example, I have been doing this job. So have been doing. You see there are three verbs here. We have, been, doing. So these three verbs are together, so we call them verb phrase. So that is a cluster of verbs, many verbs together, still functioning as verb. That is a verb phrase. But when we have a verb and a preposition functioning as a verb, that is a phrasal verb or a prepositional phrase. So you see why we no longer count these as forms of phrases again. So we are using just these three. I'm going to be explaining them at the same time, so that to keep the video quite short and straight to the point. Now listen, I said that there is now phrase or clause now, okay? There's also this phrase or clause, this phrase or clause. Now, the first thing you want to know is the function. You see, the function is very important. Once you're able to identify the function, you can tell the name easily, okay? So for example, the first function that I want to look at is the function of a noun phrase or a noun clause. You see, the function of a noun phrase or a noun clause is going to be the exact function of a noun in a sentence. What is the first function of a noun in a sentence? The first function of a noun in a sentence is that a noun functions as the subject of a verb. Is that clear? It is the subject of a verb. An example is this. Miracle came home. So for example, you have miracle came home. Now you see the word miracle here is a noun, isn't it? And what is it functioning as here? It is doing the function of a subject, okay? And if we fragment these into the pattern, we're going to have S, V, and O, okay? Now, actually home here is not going to be an object, it's going to be an adjunct, okay? We're going to get to that later in sentence pattern. Now, miracle came home. Miracle is a subject here because is the one performing the action. So it's the subject of the verb. Make sure to see my video. I'm going to release a video on sentence parts, the part of the sentence. So like I said, miracle here is the subject of this verb. So that's the function of this noun here. Now another important function it performs is a noun also acts as the object of a verb. Yes. So for example, if I say I helped Miracle, or I say I like Miracle, let me use like, or I love Miracle, for example. Miracle is an object here. Why? Because it's the one that the action is falling on. It's the one that the action is happening to. The liking or the loving is on him, is falling on him. Is that clear? So he's an object here. So you see, it's also now a name of a person, so that's going to be an object of the verb. Make sense? Then the third function of a noun that is very important in this grammatical name and function segment is the object of a preposition. Now, the object of a sentence and object of a preposition is quite similar, only that in this case, the object will not follow the verb directly. Notice in this case, this object follows the verb directly, okay? But in the case of object of a preposition, that noun will follow a preposition rather than a verb directly. Is that clear? So now, an example of such sentence is they came to my house, okay? My house is on the line there. They came to my house. My house is on the line. Now, my house here is going to be the object of this preposition to. Is that okay? The cat is under the carpet. Under the carpet is underlined. The carpet is going to be the object of the preposition under. Is that clear? So that is, these are the three major functions of a noun. But we also have one more which is called noun in apposition to a subject. noun in apposition. Now, what that means is this. If I have more than one noun or more than one subject in a sentence, then the second subject is going to be an apposition. Apposition simply means beside, standing beside. For example, if I say miracle, the friend of Joshua is here. Miracle, a friend of Josh is here. So you see, I now underline a friend of Josh. Now, a friend of Josh is still referring to who? It's still referring to miracle. So for that reason, a friend of Josh is in opposition to the subject miracle. Is that clear? Or, yeah, that's just the way it is. The subject, the second subject, is in opposition or standing beside the first subject. Is that clear? Those are the functions of a noun. All right. So, but for the context of these grammatical names and functions, the ones that are relevant or most important to us are these three. All right. So keep those in mind. Write them down. Subject of a verb, object of a verb, object of a preposition. Are the most important to us for this lesson. Now let us look at adjectival phrase and adjectival clause. Now what are the functions, or what is the function? It has only one function. The function of an adjective in a sentence is to describe describe or qualify a noun, or in some cases a pronoun. The function of an adjective is to describe or qualify a noun. Do you understand? Now, the third one, which is the last one, before we get into the trick I want to teach you, is the adverbial. Now, what is an adverbial? An adverbial modifies a verb. Okay, from the name you can already tell. You see adverb, that is an addendum to a verb, adding to a verb. Okay, so what it does is it modifies a verb, and by modification of a verb, it means that it's going to give us further information about a verb. Some of the information it gives are reflective of the names that we give to the types. We have adverb of time, we have adverb of place, we have adverb of time, place, reason. Okay, these are the most important. Then we now have of manner. Okay, reason or purpose. We have of condition. We have of concession, and we have of degree also, and of frequency. Okay, so now actually for the purpose of WAEC, we need only these three. Okay, we need only these three: time, place, reason or purpose, the manner, condition, concession, degree, frequency. So these are the functions. So for example, if I say when we got there, to identify them, to be able to identify adverbial in the case of grammatical names and function, when you see a statement like when we arrived, you know it's connotative of time. So of course you already know that's an adverbial phrase or clause, okay? But in that, my statement is a clause, okay? Where he went to, you know that's connotative of place. Because he didn't do it, connotative of reason or purpose. That is also what adverbial. You see, you can already see the pointers, right? Those are the indicators of whether or not it is an adverb, of whether or not it's an adverb. So then of manner, those ones, you know, they have indicators as well, but they are not very common in WAEC questions. So, but I'll deal with them when I want to discuss these ones, maybe clauses later. Alright, now let's quickly get to what we are now going to deal with in WAEC, which is the grammatical name and function. So now the methods I'm going to teach you, or the tricks I'm going to teach you, are very, very important for you to master, okay? By mastery, I mean you are to understand it very well. Is that clear? So the first one is this. How do we identify that a grammatical name is noun, phrase, or clause? When you see an English structure that there is an underlined expression, an expression is underlined, okay? And after that expression, immediately after that expression, there is a verb. Then there are other things afterwards. I go again. There is an underlined structure, immediately after which we have a verb. Usually, that underlined structure is the beginning of the sentence, in most cases, as far as your WAEC is concerned. In most cases, the beginning of the sentence, okay? However, if you see a verb immediately after the underlined expression, then the answer for the grammatical name, in which case I denote GN here, is going to be a noun. Now, is it a phrase or a clause? Noun or nominal? Okay, you can also call it nominal. Now, will it be a phrase or a clause? Now, this is how you determine that. I'm going to check within this place. If there is a verb in here, then your structure is a clause. But in the absence of a verb in this place, then it is a phrase. Now, keep in mind that this verb is not what determines its condition or as a phrase or a clause. No. It is the verb within that dictates phrase or clause. What this one tells us is because it's coming immediately after the underlined expression, we know it's a noun, that the underlined expression is a noun. How do I know that? There are some other expressions also that there will be an underlined expression, but immediately after it could be a noun or something else. If that's the case, then it's not a noun. It is usually an adjective there. I'm an adverbial there, adjunct there. So I'm going to tell you how it is, an adverbial or an adjunct, okay? But for the case of your WAEC, notice there's an underlined expression, there is a verb, then this is going to be what? A noun. If there is a verb inside it, it's a clause. That is, if this statement makes sense on its own, it's going to be a clause, or has or conveys information, good information. But without a verb, it is a phrase. Now, what would be the grammatical function? The grammatical function in this case is that, now, when a noun starts a sentence, what is it likely to be? It's going to be the subject of the verb. Is that clear? It's going to be the subject of a verb. Now, which verb is that going to be? It's going to be the subject of the verb that it is preceding. So, it is an antecedent to the verb. So, because of that, it will be the subject of the verb. It will be the one doing that verb. Is that clear? So, the function of this underlined structure, which is a noun, phrase, or clause, is that it is the subject of the verb that is here. Is that clear? So, you put that verb here in inverted commas or quotation mark. You say it is the subject of the verb you are given. Let's give an example. A sentential example is this. The old man bought me a bike. So look at this statement. The old man is on the line, and you're asked to tell me where the grammatical name and function of this underlined expression. You can already see that it is looking like this structure that I gave you here. So because there's an underlined expression immediately followed by a verb, you definitely know that this is a noun. Now, is this a phrase or a clause? You check within the structure that is underlined, not this verb. This one has dictated its nominality for us. But what about whether it is its condition of form? Is it a phrase or a clause? Now you check, is there a verb in this structure? As there is no verb in this structure, then you have a phrase given. So this structure here is a phrase and not a clause. I put myself this structure here is a phrase and not a clause. Okay? Why? Because there is no verb inside here. Now, what will be the grammatical function? The grammatical function of this is that it is going to be, because it is coming before this verb here. This is our verb, keep that in mind, okay? Because it is coming before this verb here, it's going to be the subject of the verb. Which verb here? It is the verb here, which is what? But. So this is the way to write your answer in WAEC. Subject of the verb, you write that verb in inverted commas or in quotation mark. Is that clear? Let me give you a second example. That you can now drive. Surprises me. Surprises me. And this is underlined. The fact that you can now drive surprises me, or that you can now drive surprises me. Now look here, what is going to be the grammatical name? You can already see it follows the structure I drew here. There is an underlying structure which is beginning a sentence, and there is a verb coming immediately after it. What is that going to be? A noun. Is that clear? A noun or nominal phrase or clause. You are going to check within the structure. Is there a verb? Now you can already see that there is a verb here. Can, drive, verbs, okay? So these are verbs. In fact, that can alone, even though it is auxiliary, is still a verb. Since there is a verb there, then this becomes a clause. So we have a nominal clause to us. Then given the grammatical function is going to be still subject of the verb. Which verb is this going to be? Surprises. Is that clear? Object of the verb surprises. Well, if you don't know how to identify a verb, then you have to review your textbooks or your notes again. Then the last example I'll give is the one that has it as an object. For example, a bike was given to me. No. A bike was bought. Go and play, Joby. Go and play, okay? Now, look at this sentence. The woman decided that her husband no longer mattered. And look at this. This is underlined. That her husband no longer mattered. So that our husband no longer mattered is underlined. Then that tells you that this is going to be a noun. Why? Because it is coming. Okay, I have not taught you the second structure. Oh, I'm sorry. So let's leave this example down here while I clean the board. So this one is for noun. Noun as a subject of a verb. That's the first condition. Now let's look at the second kind of structure. Now the second kind of structure is this one. That you are going to have some states, some structures, or maybe a structure, or a group of words. Then you are going to have a verb. Then immediately after the verb, you have the underlined expression. So I am saying that when you are giving underlined expression, go and check. Does it look like this, such that there is a full stop at the end, or sometimes there might be no full stop at the end, but the underlined expression is has a verb preceding it, but the verb is not underlined. Okay, once it is as such, then you are dealing with a noun again. Grammatical name is still what? A noun. Then you check within the structure. If there is a verb, it is a clause. If there is no verb, it is a phrase. Then you now check the grammatical functions. What will now be grammatical function? In this case, the verb the structure is coming after the verb. So it's going to be object of the verb. Now, which verb is it? The verb that you are given here. Go and play 2 of you, I said. Go and play, okay? No, go and play. Now, object of the verb, a verb is given here. Now, look at this, for example. The woman decided that her husband no longer mattered. I hope it is showing that part. The woman decided that her husband no longer mattered, okay? I'm sorry for my handwriting, but let's manage it, okay? What will be the grammatical name here? The grammatical name here is going to be, because it is coming immediately after a verb. Look at this, the verb, decided. It is coming immediately, the underlying structure starts immediately after the verb. Then it is still a noun. Then check within it, is there a verb that the husband no longer mattered? That's a verb, so this is going to be a clause. Is that clear? A noun clause. Then what will be the function there? The function here is going to be the object this time. Why? Because it's coming after the verb, okay? Object of the verb. Which verb is this? Decided. Is that clear? That's the only example I'm going to give on that, because I already substantiated the context for which we put a clause or a phrase. Now, let's go to the next, which is the third structure that will still be dealing with nouns. Okay? There are just 5 we are going to see, and those 5 will help you for all your exams, okay? The WAEC. The third one is now where you have an underlying structure. Where you have a structure given, then there is a verb, then immediately after the verb is a preposition, in which case I abbreviate as prep here. Then immediately after the preposition is the underlined expression. Keep in mind that the underlined expression begins after the preposition, not with the preposition. If it begins with the preposition, it may change the entire thing. It might even be an adverb. Okay? So make sure to check well that the preposition is not underlined. Okay? So if the preposition is not underlined, and you have the last, there's a verb before the preposition and then before the underlined expression, then your answer for grammatical name is still going to be what? It's still going to be noun. Okay? Noun, what is this going to be? It's going to be whether a noun, phrase, or a clause, depending on if there is something here. Usually for prepositions, I remember that it's usually noun phrase. In most cases for WAEC, if they ever give you one that is going to be object of the preposition, it's mostly a phrase. But, you know, you can decide that based on what I've taught you, okay? Alright, so then the grammatical function here is going to be an object of what? Not of the verb, but of the preposition. Which preposition is that? The preposition you are given here. Is that clear? Object of the preposition. Now, I've given an example of that before. She stared. No, I meant stare, sorry. She stared at the old house. So, the old house is underlined. In this case, your grammatical name is going to be a noun. Check. Is there a verb in this 3-word structure? No. There is no verb, so it's going to be a phrase. Then for the grammatical function, what is going to be the grammatical function? Because it is coming after a preposition, it's going to be the object of the preposition. Now, which preposition is that here? At. Okay? So the preposition is given, so that's going to be at. And that will be our answer. Now let us consider the 4th structure. Remaining one to go. Now this 4th structure is the easiest one. is the easiest of all the ones that I've been talking about. And that noun is kind of like the hardest because it has many functions, okay? It has many functions. So that's why you have to know the functions of a noun in order to be able to decide what you are, talking about. You have to be able to decide the function of the structure you are given. Is that clear? So now, the fourth structure is one that gives us the adjectival or relative clause or adjectival phrase. If you have a structure, okay, and there is a noun, immediately after the noun, you have an underlined structure beginning with who, whose. These two are the classical pointers. They are the classical indicators. Classical pointers. Other ones exist, but these are our classics. But then we cannot have which also can be a pointer. No, sorry. So it is these three that are our classicals. Okay, these three. But we can also have which, this, and that. They can also sometimes, but for a WAEC, most of the time, and I mean 90 to 98%, yes, of the time, you're going to have who, who's whom, begin it. When you see that your underlined expression is beginning with who, beginning with whose or whom, just close your eyes and write this. And don't ask me how you're going to see what you're writing. You close your eyes. Your answer is going to be most of the time, 90% of the time, adjectival or relative clause. Albeit there are some rare cases that could be adjectival phrase, but I'm not going to deal with that now because I'm just teaching you for WAEC's sake. For WAEC's sake, most of the time, once you see beginning with who, who's whom. And in fact, it's hard to make a sentence with who, where you will use who to begin a subordinate clause, and that's where you use it to begin. Where you use it in this structure, and it will not be a subordinate clause. You see, I'm already mentioning a clause. Usually, adjectival phrases are not common. Adjectival clauses are most common. So that's why it is very rare to have this, where you have who, who's whom, begin it. So usually, in most of the cases, when you see who, who's whom underlined, the answer is going to be adjectival or relative clause. Now, what will be the grammatical function? The grammatical function is going to be describing. So you say it describes the what? What does an adjective do? Describe or qualify a noun, right? So you can say it describes the noun or qualifies the noun. Whatever noun is given before it, and that's the way it is. There is always a noun or some cases pronoun. Okay? For example, look at this. We can have a pronoun. For example, I say, you told those who could not attend the party to write their names. So I now underline who could not attend the party. So those is, let's give it as an example. You told those who could, or he, let's use he, because that looks like, let us go. You told those who could not attend to write their names. Now, who could not attend? Now, this who is on the line. The structure on the line is from who. So, you ask, what is the grammatical name? Now, the grammatical name for this is going to be adjectival First, you can already see that there is a verb immediately after the who. That's the way it always or almost always is. So we have adjectival or relative clause. I like to write relative clause, but they are the same, okay? We call it relative because they are begun by relative pronouns, okay? That's just for you to know. Then grammatical function is that it is describing or qualifying or it qualifies, whichever you want to write, qualifying the noun. Now in this case, it's not qualifying a noun. Those is a verb, right? Those is a pronoun. What kind of pronoun? A demonstrative. So qualifying the pronoun those. Okay, those. Alright. So I mean the full statement verb, you told those people who, so it will not be people if it were a noun. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the point is that it qualifies a noun, a pronoun. That's what I'm saying. Now let's go on. So you see, this one is the simplest. Once you see who's whom, just cover your eyes, write a relative clause or adjectival clause, and the function being qualifying or describing the noun before it, the noun you are seeing beside it. That's going to be the function. Now let's look at the last structure. The last structure is one. The last structure is the one that tells us about adjunct or adverbials. Usually, you will see it takes two forms. Either you see it at the beginning, then you see a noun, you can see a noun and then a verb, okay? Or you see it in the opposite way, where there is a verb, there is structure, there is a verb, there is an object in fact, or it is coming after that verb. Because there are different ways this one comes. But the pointer or the indicator was what I showed you in the beginning there. That anytime you see something connotative of time, for example, we see the statement is the underlying structure is beginning with the word during, after, before, when. You know that it is an adverbial, usually a clause, some cases in a phrase, but usually a clause. You see a statement underlined for you to find the grammatical function. The statement that the structure that's underlined is beginning with words like where, in, under, blah blah blah. It is connotative of position or place, isn't it? So that is also an adverb. So it could be a phrase or a clause, like I said, depending on whether there is a verb inside it or not. You understand now? So reason too, once you see because, so that, or that, sometimes, you know that this is connotative of reason, right? Those three cases are the ones you are usually asked in WAEC. Is that clear? Let me give you one example, okay? After the party, they went home. And after the party is underlined. Now, what is this? Grammatical name and function. What will be the grammatical name? After the party, the grammatical name is, because it is connotative of time, is going to be adverbial. Now, is this a phrase or a clause? Check inside. After the party, is there a verb there? No. So this will be an adverbial phrase. And what will be the grammatical function? In this case, the grammatical function is going to be, you know, what's the function of an adverb? It is always modifying the verb. So in this case, it's going to modify. So you say it modifies the verb. Which verb here? Now listen. Now listen, you said this thing is connotative of time, right? So what time is it connotative of? The time that a verb happened. Which verb happened? The time they went home. Is that correct? So it modifies that verb, tells us more about, that's the modification there, gives us more information about when the went or when the going happened. So that is went, modifies the verb went. Actually, the way I teach my students is to be absolute sometimes. You want to answer the question. The full name for this expression is adverbial phrase of time. That's the complete name. But why permits if you just write adverbial phrase, that's still correct. Is that clear? Now let's deal with some questions. I'm not going to be writing on the board. I'll just be showing you per passage and we are going to be answering the questions. Alright, the first passage is on page, I've never used this textbook before. New concept, that is. Okay. So look at the first one. The first expression says a great percentage of juvenile problems. A great percentage of juvenile problems. It now says what grammatical name is given to this expression as it is used in the passage. Alright, so we'll go to the passage and check how it was used. Where is it there? A great percentage of juvenile problems. Where is that? Okay, that's the problem with this textbook. I don't think it's underlined. Jesus is Lord. Okay, look at it here. A great percentage, look at it here. A great percentage of juvenile problems can be traced. So you can see it stopped at juvenile problems, right? So you see that if you underline this expression, immediately after the underlined expression comes can be traced. So that's our verb, right? Good. So now the other thing I didn't mention is that you can also use verb phrase, not just verb, okay? So in this case, what will be the grammatical name? It's going to be, because it's coming before that verb can be traced. That verb phrase can be traced. The answer is going to be noun. A noun, is it a phrase? Let's see. Or a clause. A great percentage of juvenile problems. There is no verb inside that thing. So it's going to be a noun phrase. It's going to be a what? A noun phrase. That's the grammatical name. What is its function? The question says, continues here. What is its function? The function will be, it is acting as the subject of the verb phrase can be traced. Because that's a verb phrase. Can is a verb, be is a verb, traced is a verb. So can be traced. Okay? All good for your WAEC. Some students prefer to just write can. I think that is still admissible. But the full correct and the correct or complete answer will be verb phrase can be traced. Now let's look at the second passage. Another passage here. The second passage here is this. It says, an annual event in Nigeria cities and villages. What is the grammatical name given to this expression as it is used in the passage? So let's search that out. Okay, easy there. An annual event in Nigeria cities and villages. So let us look at the way it is used. You can see that the underlined expression is coming immediately after a verb, right? Become, the verb become, or verb phrase has become. So since it is like that, it follows the second structure that we drew, which is for the object, right? So in this case, because it's coming immediately after a verb, then it is a noun. It's a noun. Remember, if it's coming just before a verb, it's a noun. If it's coming immediately after a verb, it's a noun. So in this case, it's going to be a noun. Let's see if it's a phrase or a clause. And if an annual event in Nigeria cities and villages, that there is no verb in that at all. So it's going to be a noun phrase, yes. As long as it is a phrase, and because it's coming after the verb, it's going to be the object of the verb. Which verb here? Become. So you could stop at become or say has become. Object has become. A verb phrase rather has become. Okay, but I told you you can use only that object that is that verb that is closest to it is admissible in WAEC. The next passage here, I'm going to do like 5 passages for us, and that will be the end of this video. The next passage here is on page 33, and it says, the primary cause of child labor. The primary cause of child labor. What grammatical name is given to this expression as it is used in the passage? What grammatical name? Alright, so we're going to check where it is used. The primary cause of child labor. The primary cause of child labor. It is not underlined here. We have to search it, or search for it rather. The primary cause. How could they not underline it? Let me pause. So I found it. Is here. It says poverty and lack of schools are considered the primary cause of child labor. So the underlined expression is the primary cause of child labor. That's the underlined expression. Immediately, just before the underlined expression from here, you see a verb, right? So then, if it's coming immediately after a verb, we know that it is a noun. Now, is it a noun phrase or a cause or a clause? It says the primary cause of child labor. So that is going to be a phrase because there is no there is no verb there, so it's going to be a noun phrase. Okay, it's going to be a noun phrase. And what will be the function? To be the object of this verb considered, or object of the verb phrase are considered. Is that clear? Let me take one more, no, 2 more. Now that is in page 112. It says using words to express ideas. So it says using words to express ideas. So we are going to go there. It's here. It says using words to express ideas. You can already see that it is coming just before a verb. The verb is. So because of that, it's going to be a noun. Now, using words to express ideas. Now, the word using there may confuse you, and you might think that using is a verb in this case. Actually, using here is a gerundive noun. So because of that, it's going to be a noun. Alright, so using words to express ideas, that is going to be a noun phrase, subject of the verb is. I like to find one that there is no, that is, alright, I eventually found one that is not a noun. It says, since the outbreak was reported in China. Since the outbreak was reported in China. Now, what grammatical name is that? We have to first find where it is. It is here. It says, since the outbreak was reported in China, our government has been monitoring the situation closely. Since the outbreak was reported in China. Alright, so the grammatical name there is going to be, now what is the connotative of them? You see that I did not follow our first and second and third and fourth structure. It rather follows the last, the fifth one you can see on the board. There is an underlined expression, then there is a noun before a verb. So it is going to be an adjunct or an adverbial. Okay? Now, since the outbreak was reported, there is a verb there, so it will be adverbial clause. Okay? Adverbial clause of time, if you want to write the full name, the full grammatical name. Adverbial clause of time. And what will be the function? The function will be, it will be modifying a verb there. Now, which verb is that? Now, it's going to be a main verb here. Our government has been monitoring, okay? That if you pick only one verb, pick monitoring. But if you want to pick the entire verb, you see verb phrase has been monitoring. Modifying the verb phrase has been monitoring. So that will be it for this video. Do well to subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification to get notified whenever I drop a new video. God bless you as you do so.